I noticed for one of my videos, because I was talking about God and stuff, that a video of Trump sharing with Alabama youth at some Christian school his lessons, his wisdom, what have you. And so I felt the need to make this video very clear and early on that, yeah, while I do believe in God and I don't plan on it to probably be the central focus of this channel, it just was for the first few videos, um, as perhaps the most important fundamental thing. I also think that there's a lot more to life. And what I really struggle with is how one dimensional these different groups become. Like, if you end up in the Christian community, I just can't stand it when people just will not stop talking about Jesus. So I will not be that guy, even if I understand or have already stated, and we'll leave at that I understand that's the fundamental level. I seek to not talk about it. I also seek to not be in that community, from the standpoint that the closed-mindedness, I find very repelling, and I'll just leave it at that for now. So, politically speaking, the person who I find extremely inspiring is Bernie Sanders, and I haven't even written any notes or anything about what I even want to say about this. I just want to express some thoughts I have about this person, and we'll see what I say. So the number one thing that stands out to me for Bernie is consistency over time. If you look at the things he's saying now, you can find videos of him in the 70s and probably even earlier than that, of him doing the same thing. The classic video of him chaining himself to a tree to protest, I believe it was segregation or some sort of racial issue. Perhaps it was environmental. I remember this from 2016. It was a while ago. But you can find the same guy, roughly speaking, values-wise, positionally, etc., throughout his entire career. And if you name anybody else in the political space, it drives me insane how, for example, with the Iraq war, before it, people forget Bush had a 90% approval rating going into the Iraq war, and people loved him and were like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this, spread seeds of democracy, etc. And then after, it's a total catastrophe, everybody comes back with their tail between their legs and are like, yeah, we should have never gone to Iraq. I don't know whose idea that was. And, oh my God, it drives me crazy how, for whatever reason, people are allowed to 180 on positions that should be relatively fundamental and then never face any accountability for it, other than to just have this nihilistic, fatalistic attitude of, well, all politicians are going to lie, so what did you expect? And I think that within reason, Bernie is proof that that's not true. And while it was incredibly disheartening to watch the Democratic Party corruptly backstab him, collude against him, I'm not going to get into all the history of it. I just think that it speaks for itself for anybody who's actually aware of these matters, for anybody who has actually spent the time to dig into these matters at their roots and investigate what happened in 2016 and in 2020. It paints the Democratic Party as an extremely elitist, out of touch, corrupt, corporate endowed. I don't even know if that makes sense, but pro-corporate, anti-worker, I would say anti-you, probably, if you're listening to this video probably anti you and anti me. So within that, I feel Bernie Sanders made these concessions to work within that framework that ultimately were doomed from the start. Um, but having said that, I also feel that he proved to me that like integrity lasts forever. And when you are the same person, it's like real recognized as real. If you're a real person and you've been a real person for decades on end, real people are going to recognize you. And I promise you that regardless of whether Bernie Sanders himself um, ends up, leading the political revolution that changes the course of the United States of America, which is highly unlikely when you consider how old he is, I have a very high degree of confidence that new leaders from my generation, say plus or minus 10 years, are going to emerge who, when asked down the line, who inspired you, the number one question or the number one like answer you're gonna hear, I predict, is Bernie Sanders, and I think that that speaks for itself. So there are a lot of heroes, um, I think, out there in the world if we like look for them rather than kind of throwing our hands up and saying that nothing's changing. There actually are people out there fighting the fight and putting in the work to try to change things and aren't just kind of giving up, essentially. Um, and I think Bernie Sanders stands out as a prime example of, like I said, how integrity lasts forever.